What's going on, AND Camp? This is Justin Gibney, president of the AND Campaign, and this is another civic update where we are trying to raise civic literacy among Christians so that as we go out and engage the public square, we can do so in a more informed and effective manner. I'm going to start off by telling you something that you already know. By telling you something that is probably already affecting you directly and maybe one of the biggest drains on your bank account and the bank account of your friends more than anything else that's going on in your life. As you know, America has a serious student loan debt crisis. And this debt crisis is impacting millennials and others in a very serious way. I'm talking about impacting people's quality of life. Not only are people taking on this 30 years of debt imprisonment, but now a lot of the degrees that people are receiving just aren't as valuable as they should be. So you have these huge debts, but you don't have the money to actually pay off the debt because you can't find a job that gives you that opportunity to do it comfortably. And so what we're seeing is a lot of people are delaying things like starting a family. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into it. Some of those are cultural, which we need to deal with as well. But this doesn't help. They're also delaying buying a house. They're delaying investing and things of that nature that they shouldn't have to be delaying based on student loans. This is a serious issue, but let's look at the numbers. Student loan debt is the second highest consumer debt after mortgages. Americans have $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. The class of 2016 averages $37,000 in debt. The class of in student loan debt. The class of 2017 averages $40,000 in student loan debt. And the median net worth of millennials is $10,500. There's a problem there. There's a problem because there are stagnant wages and things of that nature. 80% of the revenue, the fee revenue that colleges and universities get in America comes from federal student loans. And don't expect, based on the market and the indicators in the market, we have no reason to expect that tuitions at these colleges will go down anytime soon. This is putting people in a serious crunch. Not to mention the stress that you go through with these lenders that have these cute names, but once you get out of college, they on your neck. They're not letting up. Right? And you got to find ways to deal with it. It's messing up people's credit. And in some states, if you don't pay your student loan debt, they'll mess with whatever professional license that you got and not let you practice. Now, if that's not counterproductive, I don't know what is. But for some reason, even though this is directly impacting so many people, for some reason, we have not come together, organized, and held our elected officials accountable for what's going on. At the end of the day, in our country, when something goes wrong, we have to put the onus on ourselves. What are we going to do about this? This is not something that if you're a Democrat, it just affects you, or if you're a Republican, it just affects you. This affects everybody. What are we going to do about it? Now, we have to step back and say, how did we get here? How did we get in the middle of this this debt crisis? And if you ask me, it's another example of good intentions, but bad policy. Good intentions, bad policy. What the federal government was trying to do is make college more accessible. And I completely support that. I want as many poor folks, middle-class people, whoever, to have just as much of an opportunity to go to school as everybody else. That is important, and I'm glad that people made an effort to do that. However, the response or the solution that they came up with, I think, just wasn't a good solution. What they did was made student loans more easy to get. And so they put all this student loan money into the market, and you had politicians bragging that we made more money available for students to go to college. Yeah, you made it so that people could take on more debt. I'm not sure that's a great solution. So what happened was, once all this money was in the market and schools knew that students could pay more to go to their schools, what do? They raised tuition. That's what the market does. The market could bear more, they could charge more, and so they did charge more. And so what you saw was not these huge numbers of more kids going to college, there were increases, but you saw the folks who were already there paying more. So you didn't even really get the complete impact that you wanted to have. This is bad policy. It's policy that sounds good on the front end when you announce it to a large crowd, but if you look at the particulars, it's really not that good of a thing. We need a complete paradigm shift when it comes to student loans and how we look at going to college. One of the things that we have to do is say, let's look very closely at what type of degrees we're getting. Do we know what we can, do we know what we can do with these degrees? Do we know how much is being paid for this particular degree? The days of going to a school and just taking whatever the easiest courses are need to be over. Because once you get out, I can guarantee you're going to regret that happened, and parents need to look at that. I know it's hard for parents also to tell their kid once they get into a good school, nah, you can't go there, it's too expensive. But sometimes you may have to do that, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I know a lot of people who went to really good universities, and going to good universities does matter. Network, things of that nature. But if you don't apply yourself, you're not necessarily going to end up in a good position. I know a lot of people that didn't really apply themselves and are struggling today because they went to a good university and they thought that's all they had to do. And on the other hand, I know people who didn't go to just great universities, but they applied themselves. They were at the top of their class and ended up going to a really good grad school, whatever, and did an excellent job. We just have to look at this differently, and wherever you go, you have to apply yourself. That's important. The other thing I think we need to look at is these colleges need to take on some of the burden. If you're giving out degrees that just are not valuable in the market, then you may need to make up for some of that loan, forgive loans or whatever. But we need to look at how we can hold colleges responsible for what they're doing. Now, everybody doesn't. Now, when doing that, we have to understand everybody doesn't go to school to make the most money, to make as much money as they can. And so somehow we have to keep that in mind as well. However, if you're paying these exorbitant prices for tuition and then you get out and the market doesn't even need anything that you're offering, that is problematic. We have to take a look at this. But here's something else, and this is a theme, if you've been watching this for a while, that I've been on for quite a while. This is why we need to pay more attention and pay more time debating and discussing the particulars of policy rather than spending all our time debating party. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, who can I blame this on? Which party was responsible for this? The answer is both. A lot of this happened during the Obama administration. It did. And the Republicans, in many instances, were right there with them supporting this kind of policy. And so at the end of the day, we need to blame ourselves. And if we want to be distracted by always arguing generally about party, these are the type of policy issues that we're going to miss. Because all you're going to say is my party supports giving students more money. But are you looking at the policy? Is the policy even good? Are they just giving folks more money and then the folks get out and can't even pay for what they need to pay for? Why do people go to college? They go to college to learn. They go to college to be able to make a living and to be a productive citizen. Well, if when I get out, I'm being crushed by student loan debt and it's crippling me, then isn't that counterproductive? Because basically all I'm doing is going to college to pay for student loans. I'm going to college, getting a job just to pay for student loans. Is that really how it's supposed to work? In many instances, and not all instances, in many instances, that's how it's going. You get out of college, get a job to pay for the loans that you took on in college. It shouldn't be taking up that much of people's income. And so what are we going to do about it? Are we going to be distracted by partisan back and forth, the stuff that we see on Twitter? Folks just want to talk about which party is right, which party is wrong, as if one's an angel and one's a demon. They may not be equal in a lot of instances, but in certain instances, they need to be held accountable just the same. Will we be distracted by that, or will we get to the particulars of the policy? It's time to organize in regard to this issue. If you like this conversation, this commentary, and want more, I think you should listen to the Church Politics Podcast with myself and Michael Ware. We do it once a week, talk about a whole bunch of issues from a biblical worldview. You should tune in. I hope you got some good information from this. I will see you next week. Take care.